Hey everyone, I am super excited to bring to you this interview today. I interviewed Tom Morkes in advance of the AI Writing Summit that he is hosting, and I will be a panelist on. So let me tell you about who Tom is. Tom is the founder and CEO of Insurgent Publishing, author of The Art of Instigating, also The Complete Guide to Pay What You Want Pricing, and Collaborate. He's also the host of the iconic podcast In the Trenches, where he interviews today's most fascinating and sometimes controversial marketers, entrepreneurs, and authors. Tom is a sought-after marketing and growth consultant who's helped his clients reach the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestsellers lists. Also, he set the record for the most funded nonfiction publishing project in Kickstarter history, and he generates millions in sales online using his referral, influencer, and affiliate marketing strategies. Tom's ideas on marketing and entrepreneurship have been featured in a variety of top publications, including Inc., Forbes, Business Insider, Entrepreneur, and Growth Hacker TV. Tom is a West Point grad and Iraq War veteran who spent 5 years as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army before making the plunge into writing, publishing, and entrepreneurship. When Tom isn't helping brands and businesses grow their profit, he spends his time with his family, working outside on his mountain homestead and drinking just the right amount of coffee. You can get inside Tom's brain by reading his blog at tommorkes.com. All right, all the links are going to be in the description or the show notes or the blog post, however you're accessing this information. Please enjoy our interview and be sure to check out the AI Writing Summit. I do share my affiliate link in the notes. There's a goodie that's available just for limited time only. And if you sign up for my blog or my newsletter and subscribe, you will get all the information to the All Access Pass that's coming pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. All right, enjoy the interview. Hey everyone, this is Beth Barany here with co-producing this wonderful interview today with a guest, Tom Morkes. Is that how I say your name?
Yes, that's correct. You nailed it.
Awesome. And I'm going to say co-production because it's not going out on my normal How to Write the Future podcast channel. It's going broadly to my whole creativity coaching for writers YouTube because we want to get this out because I have a special guest here with us today. Tom is going to talk to us about an upcoming summit. And off the top of my head, I'm thinking the title is the AI Summit for Writers. Is that right?
Yes, the AI Writing Summit, but that's effectively the same thing.
Great. You said you cut out a little bit. There's the AI Writers Summit.
Yes, the AI Writing Summit.
The AI Writing Summit. Great. And I'm going to be participating in that in a panel. I have a lot of colleagues who will be part of that. And so let's dive right in. I really appreciate that you shared with me some great starter questions to get the conversation going. We all by now have heard about ChatGPT and lots of other AI tools coming for visual and audio and putting it all together. But we're talking specifically to writers. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the summit is about and how it's going to help us future-proof our author career.
Yeah, so the gist of it is just that AI is on the scene now, and it's making a splash in the writing space. And when you bring up the subject, it becomes very diversive. It becomes very polarizing. People are either into it and taking maybe an entrepreneurial approach and saying, what can I do with this?
Yeah.
Or they're hesitant. I don't want to say fearful because I'm not trying to project that. Maybe some people have some fears around it, but more just like reticent. What is this? What does it mean? And from an artist standpoint, I really get that. I understand that as somebody who creates stuff. Do we need just more trash or garbage in the world? Because I can see that's the output of a lot of AI created content. And that's what people think of. And the first thing they think of is the spam that follows like the advent of a new technology, right? So you see all these AI created books and they fled Kindle and Amazon. And then you're like, I shouldn't have to deal with this. I've been writing for years or decades. And now I got to compete with this. And that's unfair. And so I get both ends of the spectrum. What prompted me to host the AI Writing Summit was it's now at a point with this last year where I've been playing around with it. And at first I thought there was really nothing to it. Like I just thought it was pure hype. But now after playing around with these tools pretty aggressively last 6 months and saying like trying to find out ways they work and also trying to break them and find ways they don't, I've come to the conclusion that some of them are getting better pretty quickly. And because of that, some of the elements of AI are certainly here to stay, and it's going to be here whether we like it or not. So the purpose of the summit was to just demystify AI writing. What can it do? What can it do? And
Mhm.
also, how should we approach it? Because
Yeah.
I don't believe it's a boogeyman
Mhm.
that's here to destroy us.
Yeah.
I do believe that it's a tool like a shovel. And like a shovel, it can be put to bad use or good use. And we just got to find the places, say, to dig, so to speak, with that analogy. But I'm sure throughout this, I'll give a bunch of analogies because
Yeah.
AI is like a lot of things, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, that's really great. I agree with you. It's a tool like any other, and there's misuse just like with any other tool. Yeah, that's great. I something that I'm bringing up to my community is because it's a concern of mine is the ethical issues of how AI, how we got to this place with all these large language models with the ChatGPT and all the rest. I'm spacing on the name of it, but the visual tool that people are using to, I have writer friends who are using it to come up with their characters and things like that. There is a big ethical issue, and I don't know if the summit will address that, or so I thought I'd bring it up just so we could
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah, we're part of what we're going to be talking about are the ethics and the legalities as well. So we're bringing in some speakers to speak to both those topics. And I don't consider myself an expert on any of this. I'm just the person who's bringing it together, and I like to learn as well. So it's more like I look at this more like I'm just doing a PhD thesis on the subject than anything else, and I'm learning a lot in the process. My take is that, but the short answer is, yeah, come to the summit. We will address those, I think, in more depth. But here's my really basic fourth grade level understanding and approach to it, which is that one, that is a serious issue. Like, I don't think anybody denies that. Some people might just ignore it and then just move forward and whatever, so be it. But I think it's a legitimate concern, like where it's a large language model. Where does the language come from of this large language model? Is it my language? Is it stuff that I've already published? Do I have a right to that? These are great questions. What I will say is that on the ethics of that too. So I don't know where that's going to go. It's such a gray space and so early right now that while there are, like, I think lawsuits and stuff like that are happening in and around OpenAI and literally those concerns, there's not much movement there yet that I'm aware of. What I will say is that from experience using it and from talking with some developers who work with AI, and this could just be because they're biased, so take it all with a grain of salt, but that what it's doing is it's taking, say, these millions of data points, and then what it does is just it interlinks them and connects the dots. And so you, instead of it being like on a two-dimensional plane, like it's a three-dimensional plane and there's an infinite number of dots, right? And it can connect all these things. So when I search, write me a sales page for my book, or write me a book description for my romance novel, it connects the dots. It goes to romance novel description, and then it's like bouncing off all these data points to then mimic what many multitudes of those data points indicate. It's just guessing.
Mm.
So that's very interesting and strange, and I don't know how to take that, but that's how I've understood that so far,
Mhm.
which I'm not saying that makes it right or wrong, but what I will say that one thing it can do is it can mimic. One
Mhm.
thing it can't do is create, at least not at this point. We
Yeah.
have this whole generative AI thing, and people think that's really a thing, but the output is really tremendously bad, and it's maybe at some point in the future will be better. But because it's basically a best guesser. It's not really intelligence. It's like artificial guessing.
Mhm.
And that's why you get the outputs that you get. So I say all that because I actually do believe that nothing's going to replace a human, even in spite of how hyped up this AI cycle is. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of utility in some of these tools.
Yeah.
And I think moving forward, you're still going to need the heart and soul of the person,
Mhm.
but then you can complement it and augment it with some of these AI tools.
Yeah, I really love that you said that. It's something that I'm really leaning into and noticing myself as I use these tools. That it's only as good as the material it's been fed, and that it's a probability. It's doing like likelihood search and combinations of that, and has no intelligence actually whatsoever.
No.
Yeah, none.
As much as we'd like it to some
Yeah,
degree. I'm like, why can't you be more intelligent?
I,
So I'll give you one example of what it can't do well, which is, what do you call it? Story Bible? Is that what you usually refer to it as?
yeah,
Like for
yeah.
fiction authors? Okay. And again, for those who don't do fiction, so it's just like anything that would keep consistent elements across time in a story. So it turns out AI is not good at that, like at all. So to me, that would be such a useful feature, but we're not there yet. So it's not good at being consistently aware of recent things or even like broadly speaking things. Cause again, it's just best guessing.
Mhm.
So again, all of a sudden you can realize, okay, it's probably good in very specific situations and it's very bad at other very specific use cases.
Absolutely. It'd be so cool if I could load into a tool my trilogy or my quartet and go
Yes.
create a wiki for me. Because I actually just
Yes.
had someone create a wiki for me because I'm getting ready to do a film. So I'm like, please go through these few
Awesome.
books and tell me what everyone is wearing and the colors and the hairstyle.
Yes.
And so I could give that to my art department. And it was awesome. A real person did that for me.
That's so cool. See, but AI can't, I don't think right now. It can augment it. It can maybe help with some of the things, but even then, it all comes with this giant asterisk. It's buyer beware. It's
Totally.
like the output you get, it's like you have to check all of it. I don't want to say I'm on the fence. Like I believe that AI will be part of our future as writers and publishers, but I don't believe it's as powerful and consuming as many people think it is or portray it to be. I think for maybe financial ends, because it's you make a lot of money by pumping this stuff right now, like any kind of hype cycle, but there is utility in it. And again, I do see it getting better and better. So I do think if those are some of the things we need to do with it, how can we use it to actually improve the work we're going to do anyway? That's where I think it's best suited.
I agree. So let's get into some of that. What are some
Yeah.
specific tips, creative writers and nonfiction writers? But I work with creative writers, novelists, mostly science fiction and fantasy writers. What are some tips that we can implement from the AI toolkit into the creative process? And I have a lot of thoughts
Yes.
on this, but I'd love to hear your take as well.
So one of the cool things that we're working on is a series of AI writing toolkits for specific genres and stuff like that, which is really fun. So one of the things we're learning again, because it's like you ask it, what are your big genres?
Science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah, so it's write me a science fiction story. What are you
Mhm.
going to get? It's give me a plot for a science fiction story, and what are you going to get? You're going to get generic, right? You're going
Mhm.
to get some kind of literally just very generic, nothing special, but you might get an interesting idea or two. So again, I'm not going to totally wipe it off the table and be super judgmental about it. If you're totally new to this, maybe you can use it as a sandbox to brainstorm ideas, throw things at a wall, see what comes back. I think most of it is probably not great, but there might be 1% that's a gem, or there might be one or two ideas that are really useful for you. Let's say we're talking the beginner writer, not the advanced, somebody
Mhm.
who's written and published multiple works and is working on new series. And so again, we have to categorize these types of writers. But the absolute newbie, I think there is value in the sandbox element of AI and ChatGPT. I'm just going to broadly speak about that. They're all similar. That's the other thing. Like
Yeah.
ChatGPT is very similar to what is Google calling it now, Gemini, which is very close to Claude. And there's a lot of competitors in the space now. And then you'll see offshoots of these software tools. So when I'm talking about this, I'm just talking about, broadly speaking, and I guess for the most part, I'm talking about ChatGPT. It seems to be the most ubiquitous. And to some degree, for writing related things, it's pretty solid compared to the others. But again, you could jump into Claude, and tomorrow could be better than ChatGPT with how quickly the progress is being made on this stuff, and everyone's trying to one up the next competitor. So I feel like I should give some context to this.
Sure.
If I'm using something like ChatGPT, it can be a good sandbox. It can be good for bouncing ideas off of. It
Yeah.
has an infinite ability to take my ideas at least and bounce them
Mhm.
back at me, and
Yeah.
it will never get tired. For brainstorming, it can be helpful. The
Mhm.
more specific you get with the brainstorming, and the more you can give it specific information, I think the more useful the feedback it can give you is. It's again, you're going from 1% useful to maybe 10 or 15% useful. That's a multiplication, but you realize still the vast majority of what you're going to get back is not going to be great. So then
Yes.
you might think, what's the utility in that? If you have a structure, say, for how a science fiction story ought to be written, right? Maybe there's a structure to it. If I come in and I say, I'm going to write a science fiction, but I'm not going to use any of the tropes and I'm not going to use any of the typical narrative elements of sci-fi or whatever. Am
Mhm.
I really writing a sci-fi? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe
No?
it depends. It's tropes that make a genre, in my opinion,
Yes.
in a lot of people's opinions. So if you have
Correct.
no genre guidelines in terms of tropes, in terms of expected types of structure, there's multiple kinds of structures
Yep.
you can use, then it's going to be something else probably.
Yes, and it's funny. There you go. If you don't study the space you're in, if you're not a student of it,
Right.
the beginner is the naive mistake is I can just come in, I'm going to write what I want to write.
Mhm.
And listen, sometimes it works out, but I'd say probably 99 times out of 100 it doesn't, because you're missing some of the narrative beats, you're missing some of the elements that make a story in that space. It's like romance. Like there is another good one. We work with a lot of romance authors, and it's if it has like a unhappy ending, it's not a romance.
That's right.
It's as simple as that. Like all of a sudden it's a different type of book. So AI, broadly speaking, understands what is a sci-fi book in terms of data points. What is a romance? What is stylistically? What are these things? What are some of the tropes and the beats? It knows them. So what we've been engineering are pieces to overlay on top of that to basically create like a template, a book writing template. So you come into something like sci-fi, it would have the built-in elements to help AI understand. That's the thing. It's got an infinite data points. And then you hear about prompts. People talk about prompting a lot because what you say to it is it's going to influence what you get back and how you say it. So I'm not somebody that's here's 1,000 prompts. Granted, we have a lot of prompts you can use, but I think actually what's more important than that is having a structure process. So a framework or a blueprint that you're working with. And then from there, a series of steps. And then underneath each of those steps, you have specific prompts. So that's how we're building it down or breaking it down in each one of these genres, sci-fi, romance, some of these other ones. They're a lot of fun to do. And each one is unique and dynamic to some degree. Some have many things that are consistent across them. But if you start with a structure and a process and what you want to do with AI, in my opinion, the results we've seen that get the best results, I guess you could say, like the best output is starting with that high level and then working your way granular, like go to the granular. So start high level, then go granular and do it bit by bit. So you want to do it whether that's chapter by chapter, section by section, or again, if you have content, you've already written it. Again, another thing that AI is really good for is, hey, this chapter is like really long. Where could I tighten it up? Sometimes you can get decent feedback on that. Am I losing the reader anywhere here? Those kind of things can help you actually maybe get some points and feedback of how you can tighten something up, or if the characters have motivation is another way. I've spoken to a couple software developers who have this in their writing software, and it's to help figure out like motivations behind characters and to keep that kind of consistent, which can be very helpful from a story writing standpoint.
Yeah, that's key.
These are some of the things. I could go on, but I'll just pause there.
That sounds great. That's really great. And I know something that I think I offered it for the goodie that's coming along with the AI Writing Summit is I use ChatGPT or a version of it inside of the software called Notion. And I use it with social media marketing, letter writing. I haven't quite used it for sales pages yet, but I'm actually about to load in a bunch of information and have it do some drafts for me. But I only use it with content I've already created. And I have the podcast and I have the transcripts and I have someone writing social media, and I'm training them to use AI to help them to accelerate the process. But they go through everything. I go through everything, and it just helps. I love how it can, especially in Notion, it can draw from my own material. Because that's really what I find the most useful is help me shorten this. Or like for the film, when I was working on my pitches, I was like, throw me some 100-word pitches because I had worked on the short version. I said, here's the short version, expand on it. Or here's the script, summarize this for me. And then I can go, oh, that sucks. Or, oh, that I like that, those 5 words. Oh, that helps me.
Yes.
Wait, I like it except for that word. Let me find some more ways of saying it. No, that's not quite right. Let's try again. And then when I try again, it's me. I'm doing it. It gives me it's like a first draft starting place.
Yes. 100%. And I would say that that's, again, what I would put in the very useful category is repackaging and repurposing of content is how I might describe that. So if you're feeding it something and you've got a blog post, turn this into a social media post, turn this into XYZ. That's extremely useful. One of the tools I use for podcasting is Cast Magic, for instance, and they have some really cool like outputs. They take the interview and then they'll turn it into a Twitter post, a LinkedIn post. With like what's popular right now on LinkedIn is like the swipe right pictures type of thing, carousel, picture carousel.
Yeah.
So it knows that, it spits it out then into like a 10-part carousel. It gives you all sorts of social media content for all the different platforms. It automatically finds quotes and does stuff like that. Descript is another one that's like super powerful, and it's like the components of AI that it's using from an audio and video editing. Like I'm blown away by Descript. And again, those kind of things, I'm like, that's where it's very clearly very powerful.
Yeah.
If you can feed it content and have it repackage or repurpose. It's also good on the marketing stuff, like better than the generative like AI for storytelling and writing. Again, you can still get some decent output from it, but on the marketing side, with marketing, good marketing is being very clear. And I think that, again, with the right prompting, and you've got to work through the kinks of AI, because sometimes it can just throw in superfluous words and uselessness, just because that's what it does. It actually can be really good at being clear about things.
Yeah.
Right. So I can say, here's what I have, turn this into a sales page. Or what I would usually do if I were to prompt it first, I'd say, hey, I want to write a sales page. What are the components of a good sales page?
Yes.
So I ask it to tell me those things.
Good.
I'd say, what's an example? What does that look like? So I spend an extra 5 or 10 minutes like prompting. Then I'm like, okay, here's my content. Now write the sales page. I do much longer prompts. That's why I don't call it prompting. You think you get this this a group of words you can just feed into it once and you get the output you want. But it's not exactly that. It's like you got to lead this thing a little bit and you got to set it up. Otherwise, it doesn't know what you're going for and it's going to forget as well. Coming back to it on the marketing, I found it very useful for social media content, sales page content. Again, the output isn't immediately. Like I would actually probably say never, but let's just say again, most of the time I would never ever just copy and paste something. Sometimes it hits though. Sometimes the subject lines are good. Sometimes the titles it comes up with are good. Yeah. And again, just to brainstorm, I need a title for the book. Give me like 10 examples.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that one. Riff on this one and give me some that are weirder and more strange and more audacious and more whatever. You can prompt it those ways, using it as a sandbox and a tool that you can bounce ideas off of rapidly without exhausting it. Like what else? Otherwise, you have to pay for a full-time assistant to just be there with you, and you'd be like, "Hey, I got this other crazy idea." But I think AI is very helpful there, where it was like a thing that didn't exist before, because most of us are just not in office, or it wouldn't even take up somebody's time to brainstorm our ridiculous ideas. But now we can use AI to brainstorm it.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can also take these ideas and bring them to critique partners, brainstorming partners. Yes. And I'm lucky to be married to my critique partner with whom we can constantly brainstorm ideas, but we still use these ChatGPT type tools to like advance the idea even further. And ultimately what we need for all of this is all for human consumption. So we need to make sure it lands with ourselves, it lands with our intended audience. But for someone who is just beginning, and we'll end with this question, if someone is curious about starting with AI tools for their writing life and they haven't started yet, where do you recommend that they start?
I think the best user experience for the cheapest amount of money or the least amount of money is going to be ChatGPT. It's the baseline that everybody can get in and start using it. It's the equivalent of Google search 20, 30 years ago or whatever it is now. It's going to get you started. I think you're going to, and many people I've spoken to from the summit, many writers, authors, creators who are writing a prolific amount of content and using AI, on more than one occasion, they've said they use just the free version. Yeah. So I feel like in terms of getting acquainted with this, try out the free version, play with it. If you find it useful enough, I've upgraded to many different tools at this point, but that was one of my first. And I'd say it's my go-to. It took me like a month or two to get in the rhythm. You play around with it, you experiment with it. You're like, oh, this is silly or this is ridiculous. You ask this, you try that out. And over the course of a month or two, I did nothing with it really, but I tried to do silly things or whatever I could. Yeah. But now fast forward like a few months later and I use it every day. It's open on my screen at all times. There's always a place for me to use it quickly, or to use it for something, to do something more quickly, or to speed it up or collapse the time frame of something. So I constantly have that tab open, which is wild to say. So it's become very much part of my workflow. And again, that's ChatGPT. I have a bunch of others, but that one's a good beginner one. You can't go wrong to at least feel it out that way. And I would also say there's a million tools out there that claim they're AI. Again, start with something like this, acclimate to it, and then see if any of those other ones are actually worthwhile or not.
That's great. Wonderful. Let's plug the AI for Writers Summit, AI Writers Summit, AI Writing Summit. It's for all writers. I'm coming from fiction. I also work in the nonfiction realm. Tell us, where can people find out more? I will have an affiliate link as part of this promotion, as part of this interview. And it is a promotion for your event, but it's also to inform all of you about what's here, what's coming, so you can make better decisions about how you want to use it. So where can people begin with that?
The AI Writing Summit can be found at aiwritingsummit.com. Very good. I'm happy with the domain. I actually had AI help me find that domain and secure it. Again, the utility behind this, we practice what we preach here too. But AI Writing Summit, it's completely free to attend. We have over 40 amazing experts that we're working with on this. We are going to have live panels and live Q&A. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff. I'm sure we're going to be giving things away. The point is, go sign up for it. And the live event is going to be April 8th to April 12th. So don't miss that, April 8th to April 12th.
Excellent. Just so everyone knows, I'll be on one of the panels, AI and its impact on the creative industry, a multidisciplinary perspective, which I'm really looking forward to. Great. Tom, thank you so much today for taking the time to chat with me. And I really look forward to this summit. I think it'll be really helpful for a lot of writers. And yeah, thank you so much for putting this on. So it's going to be useful for so many of us.
I think so. Thank you so much, Beth. It was so much fun talking to you about this, and thanks for being a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely.